Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome back to another ranking video. If you are new here, my name is Juliana. I am an accountant who loves makeup. Today's ranking is going to be on my Juvias Place Palettes. I'm ranking my Juvias Place Palette because I've decided to declutter some of them and I've decided to depot some of them. This is part of my plan to spend less on makeup in 2021, which I made a video on. If you haven't seen it, I will link it above to this video. So we are going to be ranking all of my Juvias Place palettes. I have 23 Juvias Place palettes in total. That is the eyeshadow. I do have 2 Cheeks palette, which I'm not going to include in this ranking. So this ranking is all about the eyeshadows. So in number 23 position is the Saran 1 palette, and there is no big deal about this palette. It's just a neutral palette. This palette is probably my oldest Juvias Place palette, and I am going to declutter it. In the 22nd position is the Deuce Palette, and this is what the Deuce Palette looks like. This is one messy palette, and there isn't any correlation in this palette at all. It does not make sense. I mean, it makes sense as single shadows all over, but not as a whole in the palette. So I've decided to depot 4 shades. So I'm depoting this one, this peach one, the pink one, as well as this brown one over here, and the rest I'm just going to declutter and throw away. And number 21 will be the Afrique palette. This is another palette that just does not make sense. It's like a single shades put together in a palette. I mean, it's just all over the place. There used to be a red one that I kind of popped out ages ago, and the rest is just, it doesn't make sense at all. It makes sense as single shades if you were to depot them, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to depot and keep the ones I want and just throw away the rest. It's just a palette that does not make sense at all. I don't know what Juvias was thinking when they made this one. So definitely depoting this one. Number 20 is my Sweet Pinks 6-pan eyeshadow palette. And apart from the fact that I don't really like pink, this is just, I don't know, it's just like a throw of pink shades. It's just not my thing. I think I used it once since I bought it, and that's it. I just don't like it. I might depot it, but right now I'm just going to hold on to it and see how I feel in a few months time. But definitely number 20 position. Number 19 is an oldie, and that's the Magic palette. And oh, this palette, probably I've had it for what, 3 years now, and this is what it looks like. Again, this is another one that just does not go together. As single shades, oh perfect, they've got different shades that I'm gonna depot, but together they just don't make much sense. Besides this matte and possibly that one, there isn't any other one to use with any of these shades, and that's why I'm going to be depoting some of these shades. I'm going to be depoting all of the bottom ones, all of the shimmers really. I'm going to be depoting them. I think they will really look nice together with my other singles, and that's what I've decided. Depot and throw away the rest of the shades. In the 18th place is the Saran 1 palette, and this palette is not too bad. I mean, if you are a beginner, it's fine, it's okay, but I think it's time to kind of declutter this one now. So I'm going to keep the front row, I'm going to depot them, and I'm going to declutter the rest. So I am not keeping this palette. I would just like to keep these 4 top ones because I think they are beautiful. I love this orange. It's so beautiful shade, and combined with this greenish one, absolutely fantastic. And I'm just going to swatch that green one for you so you see what it looks like. Look at that, it's beautiful. So I'm definitely going to depot the top row and throw away the rest. Okay. In 17th place is the Mauve's palette, and that's the 6-pan palette. That's what that looks like. I mean, it's an okay palette, that's all I can say. Okay palette, really. I think I've used it twice now, and I think this would be a good dupe for the new Mcgrath palette that is coming out, because I don't intend to buy that on full price. I'm going to wait for a sales, if there's a sales, and if it's discontinued before then, so be it, because I can't I just can't cope with another pink palette at full price. So this is the Mauve's palette, and is in my 17th position. So I'm gonna hold on to this for a while and just see how it goes. I don't think there's any shade in there that I really want to depot, so I'm just going to keep it together as a palette. Coming in at number 16 is the Warrior 1 palette, and I love this palette even though it's neutral. I think because it's got more of shimmer shades. I mean, look at that. It's mostly shimmers, so you've got like your shimmer gold, shimmer browns. I love this palette. When it comes to neutral palette, I think it's as good as it gets. I love it, so I'm definitely keeping this one. Number 15 is another neutral palette, and it's the 6-pan chocolate one. And you see, I like it when neutral palettes are just so unique and beautiful. I mean, this is a neutral palette, but it's so beautiful. It's as dark as it gets. I mean, look at that. That's so dark. That's so dark. And then you've got your medium tone brown and this shade to blend them all together. Honestly, let me swatch the shimmers for you. They're absolutely beautiful for neutral colors. Look at that, so beautiful. I love them, and that's why it's coming at number 15, even though it's a neutral palette. If you're looking for a neutral palette and you are dark skin, you would love this one. So this is number 15 for me. In 14th place is the Queen palette by Faux, and this palette is technically a face palette, but it's also an eyeshadow palette, which is why I'm including it in this ranking. And this is what the inside looks like. So you can use this as blush, you can use that as blush. In fact, literally you can use all the matte as blush, and then use the shimmers as highlighters. But I use it for both. I use it on my eyes and I use it on my cheek. It's a nice enough palette, but I've got others that I prefer to this, and this is number 14 for me, the Queen palette from Faux. In 13th place is the Warrior 2 palette. Again, this is another neutral palette, but it's a warm toned neutral palette. Absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, and it's an all matte palette, but I don't mind because I can just get a pop of shimmer when I'm using it with me and my singles or something. I'll just put my singles in like a little palette, take this out and use them together. But these shades are beautiful. I mean, look at that. It's got your black, it's got your dark brown, it's got orange, it's got every kind of matte that I would use, you know, when I'm doing like neutral looks or something, or some sort of warm tone look. So I love this palette, and that's why it's number 13 for me. Coming in at number 12 is the Violet palette, and this palette is beautiful. This is how I like my purple, you know, different ranges, not too many colors. It's just 6, but within that 6 it packs a punch. It has different varieties of purple. So you've got like your violet-y kind of purple, your medium tone purple, your royal kind of purple, and then you've got your dark purple. So it's got everything in this, and that's why I love this palette. I really like this palette, even though it's a purple one. So it's definitely staying. I'm not depotting and I'm not decluttering it, so it's definitely staying in my collection. And on the same note, that's why the Nubian Royal is in the 11th position. Again, this is a purple palette, but it's a purple with a little bit of a difference. So again, your tones are different, and if I show you, if I put this together, you can see that it's quite different. Even though they are both purple, but they are different ranges of purple. So this is more of a royal kind of bluish purple range, and this is like your kind of lilac-y and dark range purple. It's worth having the two, and they also complement each other. I love this kind of purple because they're just enough. They're not over the top, you know, they're not overwhelming and they're not underwhelming. So that's why I love these two palettes. So that's number 12, and that's number 11. Okay, from here on, my top 10, I love all of these palettes, even though some of them I'm going to be deporting them, and that's because I feel like they will look better as singles in my single collection than together in the palette. And one of such is my number 10 palette, which is the Zulu palette. The Zulu palette is an absolutely beautiful palette, I think, anyways. So beautiful. But the problem is, again, is almost like disjointed. I mean, look at the top one. Brown, yellow and orange. Then you have your green. I mean, this bottom one and the middle one, they do go together, but the top one, I just don't see the correlation with the whole palette, which is why I'm going to be deporting all of the shades in this one. I'm keeping all of the shades, but I'm taking them out of this palette because they are together in the palette. I never get to use them, and when I use them, as you can see, I have 8 pan on this. I usually just use this bottom row, and then with the middle one, I'll sometimes use as a pop of color, maybe mix it with another palette. But this is the only 3 I actually use together in this palette. So I love all the shades, you know, separately, which is why I'm going to be depotting them. I'm depotting them and mixing them with my singles, but I am keeping every single shade in this palette. So this is my number 10, the Zulu palette. In ninth place is the Masquerade palette. Again, this palette is one where most of the shades are beautiful, but together they just don't cut it. I mean, look at this. This is like a two-tone palette. So you've got your colors up and then you've got your neutrals at the bottom. I mean, I've got neutrals that I prefer to this. So for me, I'm going to be depotting the top 2 rows and just throwing away the rest, because the top 2 rows, they are absolutely beautiful. Oh, let me swatch these 2 blue and green for you. Absolutely beautiful shades. I mean, look at that. Look at that blue. Just look at that blue. How beautiful is that? So I'm definitely depotting the first 2 rows and then just decluttering the rest. And that's Masquerade Palette, my number 9 when it comes to ranking of Juvias Place Palettes. Ranking in at number 8 is the Nubian 3 palette. It's the Coral palette. And this is what it looks like. It's an absolutely beautiful palette. I love oranges, so this is like orange with a twist, so it's like coral and then with pop of silver. I love this palette. I'm glad that now, especially now that I'm trying cool tones, the more I know I'm going to get more use out of this palette. So definitely this is my number 8 when it comes to Juvias Place Palettes. Beautiful. I love every shade in this palette, and it's definitely not going anywhere. It's staying in my collection. In 7th place is the Berries palette, and this is probably going to come as a shock because it's a pink one, but I love the tones of pink in this palette. Shades are beautiful. They are pink with a twist. So it's like, to me, this seems like a pink mixed with red. That's the way I see it. And honestly, this shimmer, oh my, look at that. Beautiful. So beautiful. It's not red, it's not pink, and it's not wine. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what I can classify it as, but it's such a beautiful shade. I mean, look at that. So beautiful. Definitely worth my number 7th position. In 6th place is my Nomad Palette. I think they've discontinued this palette, unfortunately. I don't know why on earth they would discontinue it, but it's an absolutely gorgeous palette. If you love green, you are going to love this palette. So gorgeous, so beautiful. And this shade, divine. Look at that. It's such a beautiful palette. It's definitely number 6 for me. I'm keeping this palette probably till eternity. But definitely holding on to this one. I am not decluttering it. It's an absolutely beautiful palette. I mean, look at that. So beautiful. Number 6 for me. In 5th place is the Warrior 3 palette. Again, this is another palette that is just all over the place. I mean, look at that. The only ones that go together again is the bottom one. And the rest are just pops of different colors. Green, yellow. It's not like you can mix this together, maybe purple and pink, but that's about it. So I am depotting all of these shades. I'm keeping all of them, but I'm depotting the palette itself. The fact that they don't go together just prevents me from using this palette, and I think is a waste, which is why I'm popping out all the colors and I'm going to be mixing them with my singles. But I think differently or separately they are gorgeous. It just doesn't go well as a palette together. So definitely depotting all of the shades in this palette. Warrior 3 palette, number 5. In 4th place is the Festival palette. I absolutely love this palette. The fact that it's a red tone palette, that's one reason, but it's just a beautiful palette. I mean, look at that. I have 8 pan on that as well. It's such a gorgeous palette. The only thing I don't like is some of the shades kind of fall on the shimmers. Like if you see this blue one, you can see the pink is kind of falling on it, but it's such a gorgeous shade, and I'll swatch those 2 for you. Look at the white and then the blue. Absolutely beautiful palette. I think this palette is so underrated. I love every single shade in this palette. It's an absolutely gorgeous palette and it's not going anywhere. In fact, if it finishes, I'm definitely replacing it. So I'm definitely keeping this one and holding on to it. Such a beautiful palette. And that's the Festival palette in the 4th place. Okay, we are down to my top 3 Juvias Place palette, and coming in at number 3 is the Wala 2 palette. Unfortunately, as at the time I'm filming this, I do not know where it it is in this house. I have misplaced the palette, but I'll put a picture up there. I actually featured it as one of my best palettes of 2020. So if you want to see what it looks like, go and have a look at that video. But I do not have a clue where it is right now. So that is my number 3 palette when it comes to Juvias Place, the Wahala 2 palette. I think it's such a beautiful palette. I like the twist of the multi-chromes, the little kind of glitters in it, and I think it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous palette. So that's my number 3 Wahala 2 palette. In second place is the Saran 2 palette. I absolutely love this palette. Is such a beautiful, beautiful palette for whatever reason. Probably because it's got right at the bottom my favorite shades ever: brown, red, well, red, wine, and orange. I love this palette. It's so beautiful. This is a palette, if you only have 1 minute to do your eye, this is what you want to get, honestly, because it so coordinates together. So the browns with the brown shimmers, the red with the red shimmer, with all these blues as a pop of color in my inner tear duct. So beautiful. And you probably think, okay, if it's your favorite, why is it new? This is my backup. This is my current one, which is absolutely disgusting. I mean, look at that. I have it pan on it. 3 bottom shades. Okay, I've just had that one pop off in the palette. It's a good job I have a new one. But this palette is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I love every single shade in this palette, and that's why I already have a backup of it. Oh, it's an absolutely beautiful palette. If I'm going to recommend one Juvias Place palette, it's going to be this one, Saran 2 palette. Absolutely lovely. And now my number 1 Juvias Place palette, and it's none other than the Tribe palette. I'm not sure if this is still available, but you want to get your hands on this if you love greens. This is an absolutely beautiful and gorgeous palette. This is the best palette I think Juvias Place has ever made. Absolutely gorgeous. And I'm just going to quickly swatch 2 of them for you because my battery is about to die. So that's that, and that grey one. Beautiful palette. This is my number 1. It's not going anywhere. I'm not decluttering. I'm not getting rid of it ever. And that's my number 1 palette, the Tribe palette from Juvias Place. So that's all of my Juvias Place palette. I hope you've enjoyed this ranking. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel, share this video, and following on from what I said from the beginning of the year. I'm going to depot some of them. I'm going to declutter some of them. I just think all of this is going to help me spend less on makeup in 2021. And that's what I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, like I said. And until next time, I'll see you.